In my never-ending quest to assist you in using scholarly sources, this is often a really challenging issue for English and speech students. And so I'm trying to give you as much specific information and examples as I possibly can. So here is one approach to how to use a scholarly source for anything. So let's say I wanted to do either an essay or a presentation, either an expository essay, informative presentation on making sourdough bread. I love to make sourdough bread. This is a picture of a loaf that I made last week. So let's say I wanted to give you a presentation or write an essay on making sourdough bread. Now, there may or may not be specific research on making sourdough bread, but you need to get more creative and be more engaged with your critical thinking skills to find ways to incorporate scholarly references into your material. Let me show you a simple way to do it. So first of all, as I've said, using Google Scholar as your search engine can help you. It doesn't guarantee that all of its findings will be scholarly for our purposes, but it's a good place to start. And another good place to start is to work more generally. So instead of using a search phrase like making sourdough bread, I want to talk about the history of sourdough fermentation. I just want to see what's out there as far as research into the history of sourdough. Sourdough starter has been around for about 5,000 years. It's one of the early ways to create the process of allowing yeast to help the bread grow, and fermentation was an early way to do that, and that's what sourdough is all about. So I did a search, history of sourdough fermentation, on Google Scholar, and here's what it brought me. So this is just the first screen of many screens that I could have chosen to go through after I did my Google Scholar search on the history of sourdough fermentation. And here's one that just sort of looks interesting right at the top. Generation of aroma compounds during sourdough fermentation. So one of the great things about sourdough, of course, is the aroma that it creates during the process of growing your sourdough starter, and then the baking, and then when it's done, it has a certain kind of aroma to it. So I found this, I opened it up here on the right side, and you can see the website says Science Direct, and a lot of students want to then decide that that's the source. That is not the source. The source here is where the arrow is pointing, a journal, a scholarly journal called Trends in Food Science and Technology, and it gives you the date it was published and the page numbers, and then there are the authors. And all you have to do is to check with Trends in Food Science and Technology. Go to that website, Google it, and you will learn that it is a scholarly journal that is peer-reviewed. Those are the key terms we're looking for when identifying a scholarly source. So the next thing I want to do is actually read this paper to see if it's appropriate for my uses. So this paper is full of stuff that I can apply to my paper or my presentation talking about making sourdough bread. It's not specifically about making sourdough bread, but it's about the history of sourdough. And so I can either write in my essay, I'm using MLA style here for those of you who are watching this for an English composition course. I can refer to it this way, and I can do the same thing when I'm making a presentation and referring to this source. As Hansen and Scheiberle note, sourdough has been used in bread production since ancient times because it was necessary for dough leavening. Okay, I've provided a little additional information from a scholarly source. It's not going to blow anybody away, but it is using a scholarly source for my purpose. And there below is what that reference citation would look like on the references page if you're writing an essay in MLA style. If you're using APA, it would look slightly different, not much. And then if you're giving a presentation, all you need to do is provide that reference in your outline and then refer to it this way in your actual oral presentation. These are not difficult things. I think we overthink the process of using scholarly sources, and so this is just one more example of how to start and how to apply scholarly sources in your essays or your presentation.